time, I wanted to invite Pastor Lord for our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're in our 40 days of prayer, so this week we're actually going to be praying for government leaders and for law enforcement and judges. So I just want to pray our book tonight, and I believe it says it in a good way, and it's been praying all over the world. So, Lord, you request that we do pray and intercede and give you thanks for everyone in authority. So we do thank you for our government leaders, Lord. We pray that they'll be examples of righteousness in our community, that they'll experience your wisdom in all their deliberations, and they'll speak and carry out dealings with truth that won't hinder the service and the worship of Jesus Christ. And they will come to know and honor and follow him. And Lord, I thank you for the favor here we have in Port Richey, Lord. And blessed are those that maintain justice, who constantly do what is right. Praying for judges and law enforcement this week, Lord, we pray for wisdom, patience, and gentle authority, for physical and emotional protection, for strength and the blessing of their families, that they'll become agents of God's hand to resist evil and bring an environment in which heaven's justice can increase. And Lord, with that tonight, we thank you for the Cody River overlay. We thank you for all the work, the vision for the city. Lord, we just pray that your vision may have the provisions, Lord God, for our city manager to carry it all out with the workers, Lord, for the decisions to be made tonight. And Lord, we do pray for the upcoming election, Lord God, for those to be on the council, Lord. We just pray that you would pick the ones you have and bless the rest to continue to be a part and serve. So we just thank you for putting your hand over our meeting tonight and leading in the right direction. We want to thank you for it in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, this is a reminder that your mics individually have to go on. Take down from it. Roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Ripley,
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella,
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell, here, Councilman Todd Perry,
Here.
Councilwoman Liz Rodriguez, here, City Attorney James Matthew,
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Council Brennan.
Second. All in favor? Aye. This time we're going to open up comments from the general public. And I'm going to start with Frank Letary. Welcome. Come on.
How you doing? Just to ask you again, you plan to do anything about something that just bothers the heck out of you? You know, they're just living creatures, all those dogs, homeless people, blah, blah, blah. As I talked to a few people, my people, I spent $107 bucks. I think it was Wednesday. A friend of mine don't have much. Took them to play to churches. I take a couple of people that I know in a little bit of the neighborhood. I take them to the church to get food and all that stuff. It happened to be as I was there, a couple pulled up on their bicycles. They had a little puppy. So I wanted to get out there for the little guy. So it ended up, I ended up throwing their bike in the back of my truck, and I asked to get the dog or whatever. They said, no, they just got this little puppy. So I said, go around, got food, give whatever food I got, give it to the dog, give it to you guys, eat whatever. I took them to Walmart, I bought them dog food, I bought them dinner, I bought them all this kind of stuff. That's what I do. I do that for a good few people. I see people on the streets with dogs, I always stop. I ask the questions. I see how I feel about my use of food for dogs, water and all that stuff. I want the receipts in my pocket, $107 bucks. I bought them a case of water, and I bought 4 big gallon things of water for their dogs. That's what I do, because it bothers me. You know, I just don't like to see anyone get hurt when they shouldn't. You know what I mean? It's just that simple. And to the fellow over here, I made about 5, 6, 7 appointments to sit and talk with you. My water bill was $4.90. I could afford it. A lot of people can't. I want to know, is there a reason why you didn't want to return a phone call and set up any kind of appointment with me? Can you answer me?
No.
Why not?
You
can address the panel as a whole, but not in the individuals.
Excuse me?
It's not a question and answer session, sir, it's your commentary, so.
I didn't know if it was or if it wasn't, but I want to discuss what it is, because again, this is me about, excuse the way I talk, but I say the little people can't afford much. They get a bill like that, I know they can't pay it, because I know talking to some other friends who don't have much, their neighbors didn't pay their water bill 2-3 weeks. They're going down by the beach on their bicycles to take showers. You know what I'm saying? The whole country's going down the tubes, I know that. I talk to people that are well above everybody here, my family and a couple of close friends. And no offense to the way I just said that, but, you know, I'm a good-hearted person. I don't like to see people fall and not be able to get up. That's me though. And I try to help people because, thank God I can. So, is there anything that possibly can be done about this other matter, like I said, with the dogs? Or am I gonna set up a meeting to again and again? I did it today, to sit and talk with you about this, because I want to try to work something out with people that can't afford to do something if they get bills like this. I want to try to make it easier for them. That's just me looking out for the people that can't afford much. And that's me. Is that all right with you? Or, will you say that or whatever? That is. I wish you guys consulted a little bit, you know.
Thank you. The next person that we have signed up is Pastor Leonard Wardwell. Come on.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I pastor at 8114 Leo Kidd Avenue. I just do want to thank the city for their hospitality and just giving us the opportunity to serve the city. You should have the Easter egg hunt information before you, and I just want to thank you for making it possible. To me, it's an honor to take it from the church property out to the park. So if you look, it'll be April 16th. It'll be going on from 10 to 12. A lot of things happening. The best news of it is it won't be a fairy tale. People and children can really know God's love, and it's about life after death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we just want to thank you all for being able to serve. Also, I'd like to invite you out April 14th. It's a Thursday night at 6. And what happens, that's where we do our prep for the Easter egg hunt. And it would really be good if, you know, some in the city would like to come out and be a part of it. We're going to have a whole kind of festival games before that. So if you'd like to be a part of it, giving out prizes. Also, volunteer way will be bringing water and food and candy along with the area churches. So thank you all so much. It's an honor to be in Port Richey and to work with y'all, and just thank you for your help. The Lord bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Lord. The next person that I'd like to call is Bill Colombo. Welcome. Come on up.
Bill Colombo said, I'm used to hearing more bouncing around noise. Bill Colombo, 7810 Chester Street, Mayor, Council, good evening to you. Generally speaking, I know when you speak to a specific item on the agenda, comments are usually taken after the agenda item. I want to just bring up a couple of points on the agenda item we have tonight, which is the paving project. My understanding is Clark Moody, that area out there is a C3 commercial development with a bunch of warehouses on it. From what I can see, and Mr. Matthew, you know better than I, the property appraiser site is certainly not the final word on anything. But the property lines on all the properties adjacent to Clark Moody Street are all the property of those people. We do not have a street there as far as I can tell. It actually belongs to the city. So if we're paving a street down there, and we've been patching it according to the minutes, that's, from what I can see, is not our street at all. It's commercial development, and that's the road that runs down the middle of it. It belongs to them. So that's something you might want to look into before you commit to paving the street. The only other thing I wanted to add as far as paving goes is looking at the capital improvement plan and streets that are mentioned that are in need of paving. We do have Olsner down on the south side that runs from Limestone virtually all the way down to Newport Richey. That is our artery. That does feed the south side. The section that we own that runs from Limestone down to Leonard Drive is in very bad condition. A lot of potholes in the actual intersection of Leonard and So when you're talking about paving, you might want to take a look at that street too. Those are the two items I really wanted to bring to your agenda, or to your attention.
What was the name of the street?
You have Limestone, and then you have Alter Road that runs down the limit. Alter continues all the way down to Newport Richie, really all the way down to Marine Park. The mayor probably, or Mr. Duke probably knows that. That's kind of a back road of 19th, and you can go all the way either way. And we have marina ponds and other areas on that outer part of the city that is a road that they would depend on for evacuation and just general ingress to where they live at. So, I just noticed, I know that road, having driven over those bumps, and it's another one of those ones that's a collection of potholes. And like I said, specifically the intersection of Boulder and Linden is in absolutely atrocious condition. As well as, I know you have Bay Boulevard on, and the worst part there, obviously, is part of the right. That's really all I have to say. Surprisingly, I'm leaving with, I got 7 seconds, 6 seconds.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Next person signed up is Matt Rogers. Welcome. Come on.
Pat Rogers, 4830 Sunset Boulevard. This is the first year I've taken advantage of your trash pickup. It came here really good. Timing was perfect. I set the stuff out there and 3 hours later it was done. Also, I just want to thank all the services that you have here for public works, utilities, police, fire, everybody that works in here, because you know they're doing a wonderful job. Things seem to be rolling on pretty smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that signed up for public commentary, but I wanted anyone else an opportunity to talk by showing hands. Seeing none, we're going to move on. We're going to go on to comments from our city manager, so the past administrators.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, the on-off buttons do work individually on your microphones now. Appreciate staff getting that upgrade implemented. Public Works citywide cleanup, as Mr. Rogers indicated, citywide cleanup is completed. We did fill 2 20-foot and 1 30-foot dumpster. We also filled all of our dump trucks and all of our trailers. And so staff are working on getting that disposed. Appreciate all their hard work manning the station, getting the stuff picked up. The Cleaner Street water main upgrade is complete. We spent about $18,000 on that project. Contractor estimate was that it would have been $16,000 had we hired it out. So appreciate the utilities personnel getting that taken care of. They worked over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday both to get that in. I really appreciate not only their hard work, but giving up their weekend to get that accomplished. We've got an estimate of the cost of evaluating the concrete pylons on the fishing pier. Cost estimate came in at about $1,800, and I'm directed them to proceed. So that'll be happening here in the next couple of weeks. Fireworks planning meeting last week, we reviewed and updated the police and fire action plan. FE had an action plan put in place for last fireworks activities. We've updated that for our current consideration. We continue to do fireworks planning for the 2nd of July. Had the opportunity to meet the county administrator, county manager this past week. Of note, the county attorney is still working on the CRA audit MOU. Is moving. Just wanted to remind everybody that early voting is available, 8 to 4 o'clock Monday through Friday. That will run up until close of business on the 11th, the day before the election. Anybody that wants to do early voting, go to City Hall and ask for the city clerk. She'll take care of it. Fire department is hosting, I guess, an engine and crew from Pasco County. They had a roof collapse on one of their stations, and so they needed some assistance. Appreciate Chief Paul Castry and his personnel helping out our friends with the county fire department. Be a couple of weeks before they do their roof repair and get their engine back in their own stations or to help them out. The election council meeting and swearing in schedule. Mr. Matthew took me through that this afternoon, and I'm going to defer to his explanation.
Thank you, John. Since it's a little bit unusual, I just wanted the council to maybe make one decision here. Mr. Overman knows that the charter about 70 years ago was amended to allow for 3-year terms. Okay, at that time they changed a lot of things. One little kind of a conflict, but it's really not important. Let me just take you through a few things here. The election is April 12th. Okay, so that's a Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month. Our charter does not allow us to have it's supposed to say, well, have a meeting on election day, and it calls for the meeting to be on April 13th. So, number one, the next council meeting will be April 13th, which is a Wednesday. Number two, whoever is elected, the term of such person shall commence on the third Tuesday in the month of April. So what that means is technically the term of the person, the two people that will be elected, will begin on April 19th, which is a Tuesday. Our charter also calls that all municipal officials shall take office on the first Monday, which following the Tuesday from the election. And that's where they're sworn in, which is one day before the other day, so they kind of, and in any event, on Monday, April 18th, will be a swearing in. So the last thing our code calls for is, our charter calls for is that the first meeting, they call it an organizational meeting, but at the first business after the new council members are sworn in, the first order of business is to elect a vice mayor. We have a choice here, that's why I'm going through this morning explanation. So you know that the next council meeting is Wednesday, the 13th of April. That'll be a lame duck session, as it's known. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay, so that means the council that sits here now will be the council then. Swearing in will be April 18th. Now, if you want to have your organizational meeting and choose your vice mayor on that Monday, everyone will be a part here to do that. Or you can just do that at the next meeting of April 26th. That's a choice I'm presenting. Does it make a difference? Generally, the city does it on the swearing in, but then it can be on the
The question is everyone available
Yes.
on the 19th? That's probably the good thing. If everyone look at this, I'm not going to meeting. Is that a practical matter?
Or alternatively, that we do it April 26th.
That's right, and you don't have to do it at 7 o'clock, you can do it at 6 o'clock.
I would just presume doing it on the 26th, 6:30 or whatever. I mean, we're not changing it.
7 o'clock, yes.
First, yeah, whatever.
You swear, you'll just get your vice mayor first order of business. So, council? Yes,
I have no problem with the 26th.
Okay, so John, there's your scheduling, and thank you.
Our already specific thing.
That's all I have. I stand for your question.
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you.
I have one question. Did the inspection of the islands for the alcohol whiskey, was that 1,800 or 18,000? 1,800. That's where I was surprised it was so glossed over. I'm like, wait a minute.
Okay, so that's a weak problem, that they, I will hear so far.
No, that'll tell us all the problems that we have here.
That will tell us whether the problems on top of the pylons can be replaced on the pylons, or if we have to go start all here. We're trying to determine if the pylons are good, you can build a new deck on top. If they're not good, you always.
And we'll build with that book. Yeah, the citywide cleanup that we did, would it get an idea, I mean, if it was so successful, could we have another one like in the fall, possibly?
Sure.
I mean, if the reception was that good, I'd see it again. We'll put it together, because I forgot to drop some stuff.
Like it sounds, he's taking notes, we'll put it together for the fall.
Oh, the crew will be anxious to do another cleanup, no problem. I'll let them know about that tomorrow.
And that would be Tom Kinsella who requested it.
I'm writing that down right now.
They'll be saying we shouldn't have done so good.
It appears that it was so successful, it's, well, let's give our citizens the opportunity again.
As your word is shown.
That's all, okay. So we're gonna close out and move on to comments from council. And I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna start my right this time with the vice mayor, so.
The Citizens Advisory is having a Meet Your Neighbor Wednesday, April the 6th. The time's from 5 to 7. Usually it has been 5:30 until they moved it up to 5 to 7. It's going to be at Whiskey Ridge this time. Again, as they make the rentals at the various businesses within the city. That's
I had just a kind of a question for you. It looked like that there were some Coast Guard moving our channel markers around our portion of the river. I didn't know if you guys knew what that was about. I'm not aware. Okay. And I wanted to know if we could just look into it because it is within our jurisdiction. So I just wanted to see if we could get some information on it. Okay. Not that I had a problem with it, I just didn't know if anyone was aware. And that's all that I have.
I just find things very much.
I was wondering if you knew anything that was going on with the Washington Street projects? Is there any kind of hold on that? And sometimes it's not very low and stuff, so I was just wondering what you do with that.
The engineering report has not been received. Contractor has taken out permits, but has not picked them up yet, so we're waiting on them. Would expect to have the engineering done soon. That they made contact with them last week. It's moving forward.
Yes, and so you're sure that will be this
Yes.
thing.
And at this time, I think that'll close out comments from council. We're moving on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to council business. There's only one item for council business, and that's the prioritization of the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the ARPA expenditures. And there's a discussion and/or vote for action item for a park committee and Vale Boulevard repavement. And I wanted to open that for introduction by Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received word 2 weeks ago that the $2.1 million grant we had applied for, we will not be awarded. That frees up the ARPA funds that we had talked about holding in reserve as match. In light of that finding, staff has put together a list of projects that and prioritized them with our own discretion, but obviously that comes to you for consideration. So in your packet item 3, page 12, is a budget and a list of potential projects. These are projects that would normally come out of general fund expenditures. There's other funds, utility funds available for water and sewer projects that we want to focus the discussion on. Should we spend ARPA funds on basically streets and sidewalks and things that we would typically pay for out of the general fund revenues. What you see there is Clark Moody road paving. Obviously, Mr. Colombo's point's well taken. We'll ascertain for sure. I think we'll go through that discussion once with staff. But we'll make sure it is actually our street before we spend any money on it. But on the assumption that it is our street and our responsibility, that we put at the top of the list, it's in pretty rough shape. It's a fairly palatable number. Maple Boulevard is in rough shape and a high volume street, and it made sense to us that be at the top of the list. But obviously, I appreciate your discussion, consideration, and guidance. If this is the way you want us to go, we can move forward. If it isn't, you'll give me direction and we'll change course.
Open the discussion, because I imagine the more that we do all at one time, we make it a better rate in terms of getting some of these roads done. I did drive around the city, and Limit Drive was one of the roads that I saw that just really needed to be repaved. And there were two kind of questions that I had about Limit Drive. It looked like that some of the properties almost looked like they were portage off on the side, and some looked like they were portage. It looked like it was right on the water. And then some of them almost looked like private roads. They were going out to like trailers, I guess. So I wanted to know whether or not we could open that for at least consideration, and whether or not it's even our road to pay. Olsner was what I looked at. It was in real bad shape when you get down into New Portage. But when you come into Portage, it looked like it was in fairly good condition, other than at the intersection of Limit, which it was in real poor condition just at that intersection. But the one thing about Olsner that I noted, it didn't look like it had the appropriate striping. So we may want to, if there's nothing else, that road is in pretty good condition, other than the one intersection, but it didn't look like it had the striping on it. So I didn't know if we could potentially add that for consideration. The roads that were listed are roads that we talked about in the past, and I know Clark Moody was one that I think we wanted to do at some point during last budget season. We just simply don't have enough money to cover some taxes. So, you know, it's my opinion that that one is one that really needs to be done. And I know that there's been some public commentary about that from some of the business owners and residents that are down there. Because I know that there are some houses past some of the residents, or past some of the businesses, and they have to go through that road that's been kind of beat up by the trucks. So I know that they had some concerns about the road there. And then Big Boulevard, if outside of 19 and maybe Washington, I think it's probably the most diverse road in our city, and it's just past due. So not only would I want, if we're going to do that project, but I think that we should, some of the curbs are right up on the road, maybe paint the curbs too while we shut the roads and keep the roads. And I didn't know if we can add that, or if that was already considered in terms of the road marking, some of the curbs as well. Cleaning those up, repairing those, and making sure they're painted. But if this is an action item, I just wanted to clarify if you were looking for a vote or by consensus wanted to go forward.
If it's the general consensus of the council that this is the way you want us to proceed, that's what I need from you, is direction. If it isn't, if you want to answer some other questions, take a look at some other streets, we can sure do that. And have that back to you in 3 weeks and 1 day.
And I wanted to open up for discussion and see what everyone else would be. Mr. Clerk.
I'm all for it in concept, and I agree that we should, you know, do at least with this current slug of ARPA funds, do it in one large, you know, bid process so we get the best bang for our buck on this. A couple concerns I have. I know we mentioned Olsner. I know we mentioned several other streets, and I know there's a lot more streets in here. Do we have a list of all the streets and some sort of rating system that kind of identifies traffic versus conditions, so we can, you know, maybe some of that comes out itself, and then it's actually a way to monitor and maintain our roads and get it on the cycle. and I don't want to create more work, but to help. Because, you know, I would hate to have an arbitrary assignment of, oh, this road's bad and this road's not so bad, so this road gets it. That would be my only suggestion, put together some type of overall rating system and or plan so we can analyze, monitor our streets. Because, you know, Bay Boulevard right now, or I'll say Quist and Berlin, or let's say Old Post. Old Post right now is for next fiscal year. But you know what, maybe Grand is actually in worse shape overall, or becoming in worse shape faster, and that may want to be pushed up. You know, just some sort of overall plan is my suggestion to this. Although I'm not objectionable to using the ARPA funds for paving, I just want to get the most critical items citywide and attack it from there. Everyone says Bay Boulevard because everyone's on Bay Boulevard. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad choice, but are there other ones that may be worse?
What you're describing is whole street survey, and you hire a contractor to come in, drive every street, give every street a rating, from 1 to 10, and it's a brand new street. 1 is you got to take it all the way down to the base and start over. Obviously, streets that are 8s or 9s or 10s this year, you know, if they're not maintained, become 6s and 7s and eventually 1s. But that's the process you're talking about. Take some time to do that, as it does with any big contract. Yes, $15,000, $20,000 to have that done. But it is a valuable tool. Once you have it, it tells you where you need to do maintenance. You've got 5, 6, 7s, maintain them so they don't become 4s. Sometimes it surprises people, but brand new roads 3 years later need maintenance, or they become 7s pretty quickly. So, we can hold off on this and do that. We can proceed with this and do a street survey over the next 6 to 8 months, get that back, and maybe use that to help guide the second tranche of money. I'm open to either one. Personally, I think there's plenty of roads that need to be reworked in some fashion. It's a target-rich environment.
Is it possible to do both, to do a handful of roads that we know are in pretty bad shape, and then do that this fiscal year, or this budget year, and then have the survey for the upcoming year so we can get our plan?
Absolutely.
All right. Would you be next to players, would that be okay? Here.
I'm not objectionable. Yeah, I just like something, a path set forward first.
Would this street survey also include our documentation from the city on non-repairs that we've done in the street? Is that taken into consideration on this survey?
I suppose that could be included. When I went through this previous employment, the engineers came out and they actually looked at every street and stopped and get out, where there were chunks missing. That would help guide their rating. And, they could tell where we've done crack sealing, where we've done other maintenance work. They would come in and ask us questions about that too. But the street survey gives you how does that street rank right now? And if it's a street we haven't maintained and it gets a lot of traffic, it's good to show.
I like the idea of the street survey. Also, at the same time, on the paving, does this include proper drainage? Would this correct some of the drainage moving forward when we do this paving?
I would assume it would correct whatever drainage issues might be on the roadway itself. But once the water gets off the roadway, paving would not include working on swales or ditches. That's another project, another pot of money.
On Paving Boulevard, I've noticed some heavy rains. The one lane, the eastbound lane, right by 419, it's just a large tunnel of water there, and disappears. The water has no place to go, so the lowest area sits right there at that bigger area. So I'm just wondering if this paving was correct.
Well, that's what I was going to ask that as well, because not just on our side of the city, but I know where Chasco and Sunset run. if we did do those roads at some point, I think there's speed bumps on the next one over to Limestone. Whether or not you'd want to elevate the road a little bit to get the water off it at certain times, but then what the effect would be on the homeowners, whose homes on either side. So, I think that's something that, we have to figure out before we make that decision. Because if you push the water off the road and it doesn't go in a ditch, and it doesn't, people's yards, that's not as ideal either. So we'll just think of that for that. But I agree that I was thinking about that, because you have both those and they, when there's a heavy rain and a high tide at the same time, the water's trapped in that intersection. Yeah. You can get a truck through there, but people that drive cars, it's kind of dicey depending on how much water moves. Yes. I wanted to come back over to Councilwoman Rodriguez first and see what you had on.
I like the idea of the,
We'll go Councilwoman Searle first.
well, all right.
About the big boulevard, so I can get all about that.
I do have a question about the boulevard. The sidewalk on Bay Boulevard from Wilkins to about the apartment complex is right on the street. How are we going to improve the safety issue on that without taking property from the residents?
I have to look at the easements, that probably is what it would require.
It is right on
Yeah.
the street, and that's going to affect the culvert that runs down through that area too. And that culvert fell off and the pipe comes in, so that's where most of the water comes from in that big boulevard area. So when the pipe is in, the water is coming up through there and coming into that area. We actually corrected that a couple of years ago when we diverted the flow from Bureau Bay back down toward Salt Springs, the Salt Park. And that took a lot of the load off of that particular area, because that whole parking lot was turning into a big pond, and that's, it's been alleviated, but that's where the water usually comes from, is when the tide comes right up through those, and putting a one-way valve on it would be practical. So, in the yard. Now, the sidewalks in Quist and Berlin, do they even exist? I don't think they exist, do they?
Yeah, so I think one of those was going to be new.
And that's the question, what was it?
Quist and Berlin, are those replacements or are those new sidewalks?
That would be replacements of pre-existing sidewalks.
Are they also on the street, so there's no area between the street and the sidewalk?
Yeah, they have the streets on both sides, they have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and they body right up to the street.
Right up to the street?
Yeah.
So that's also another walking safety issue. Yeah, okay.
And I know what you're talking about on Quist, and I think there's some areas where the sidewalk is dense,
Yeah,
more than on Quist, and I think that's what you were referring to, right?
there's some areas right there. But I do know that some of them in the street and the sidewalks are going to continue, so. And that is the safety issue.
Like I said, I can look at the width of our easement. I'm not going to guarantee if there's a fix for that.
There's going to be, a shelter for the people that live there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's something that they're going to be aware of.
Not the ideal design.
And there isn't one on Green Street at all, so you're taking it out of my yard? Just that's it. Maybe less than a month. But new utility poles are right there.
Grant has, it depends on who you ask. Either the next thing we need to do or the last thing we need to ever do. So we put it on the list. It's also worth noting that Grant itself is a county road.
Green.
I think you said green.
Oh, Grant or Green?
Green.
I'm sorry, I
Right
misunderstood.
there, and the utility poles are right there, so
Not familiar with that.
there's no sign.
Okay.
Or the day, going in green. No.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. So, anyway, so I think that this is a good plan. I think we should go ahead and do the top 3 items and go ahead and do what Councilman Gonzalez said, to take a survey and find out what where our priorities are. And then go from there next year. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
My question was about Grand Boulevard. That's a county road?
Yes.
So what would the plan be with that? Because that is obviously a lot of people are walking that now, so that is high traffic and there are people speeding literally up and down.
Right. I, obviously, there'd be some consultation with legal counsel, but I would assume that would be a joint project between city and county. And just an assumption, if we went to them and said, we want to spend our money on your street, my guess is they'd be okay with that. But it's something that I get asked about, like I said, at both ends of the scale. You should do it tomorrow, you should never do it. And so there's enough folks that have said we need it, put it on the list, it's one of the rest of it.
It's on the list for 25, so I think we want to, if that is a safety issue, people are walking down the line, maybe evaluate the need for that sooner than later.
So are you looking for a motion?
I'm looking, I think for a consensus, because it doesn't look like necessarily an action item, although it's kind of hard to tell the way it's laid out in our package. What I'd like to do is frame it in the sense that what was proposed in our council packet was Bay Boulevard repaving and Park Moody repaving out of ARPA. And then what I would think is anything else we're going to do, we would put on for next year and then have a study done between now and then. Is that kind of by consensus what everyone's comfortable with?
I think we should definitely figure out Clark Moody first before we start.
With that caveat, absolutely. With that caveat. Obviously, if it's not ours, then we have to, the one who assess the business owners, and that'd be a different discussion. But if it is ours, I think we'd go forward at this point.
It's a request motion to approve the utilization of American Rescue Plan Act funds to repay Park Moody and Boulevard and Bay Boulevard. Second.
Can we clarify with the caveat?
Caveat.
That'd be on the roads.
On, Park Moody.
Okay. Is that okay? Motions? Yeah, fine. All right, because it is now an action item, we have a motion and a second. I want to open it up to the general commentary from the general public. Mr. Mueller, welcome. Come on up.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. In case you guys don't know, we can't really hear with the reverberation going on with this mic system. I don't know if you've had it tested, but the sound quality is terrible out here. You might check your stuff and give it a tweak. With regard to Clark Moody, if it is owned by individuals, it's not the city's business to deal with. It's out of their scope. And the individuals should be able to seek their own solution because it would be their property. They could probably accomplish that repair much cheaper than the bureaucracy through the city. But that's first and foremost the sense that you guys are involved. With regard to the sidewalk issues, I can certainly agree with Councilwoman Sorrell that the sidewalk is way too close to the road. With regard to Berlin and Quist, what's going on back there, they have the luxury of having 2 sidewalks on both sides of the road, where the remainder of the city may not have any sidewalks on the road. Wouldn't it be prudent to put sidewalks where there aren't any rather than to take away sidewalks where there are? Just an observation. In addition, any repair to that road drains water right into the canal system in the city that we've got before we begin another one and abandon all the efforts and studies that were done to produce the documents for it. If we'd like to start, we can do them both at the same time, but the city needs to make an effort. I appreciate you taking a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? One little walk, come on.
Bill Colon, 7810 Chaska Street. I think this microphone is working now. Yeah, we have a long history in the city of sidewalks in Owen. A lot of that has to do with easements, so it's kind of a difficult issue to deal with. Sidewalks are always problem. You had touched on the subject of flood mitigation. Not an unusual subject for coastal cities like ourselves everywhere. I'm sure Mr. Booth is aware, and some of the rest of you are, that there are in fact essentially backflow detectors for where stormwater comes into, say, one of the canals that essentially is a check valve. It doesn't let the flood water go back the other way. It's not a perfect solution, but it does in those high tide, high rain events prevent some flooding. There's one other thing, so that's something I would like to see on our agenda moving forward. As Pat Rogers can tell you down on Sunset, just the other day I drove down there and the water is basically almost over top of the wall, just on high tides. We have a lot of those issues around here. And all the old locals will tell you the tides are running stronger than they used to. Or the seawalls are sinking. I don't know what the difference is. For whatever reason, the water's getting on the roads a lot. Is there going to be an opportunity later in this meeting to address something that y'all did or decided that wasn't on the agenda, or is this something like?
You can address it now if you like.
Okay, basically, Jim, in Article 2, under Section 202, and you go down to D, Vice Mayor, the City Council, this is in the City Code. The City Council shall nominate and elect by majority vote a Vice Mayor from amongst its members. The nomination and election shall take place at the first organization meeting after the regular April election. The process shall repeat if the Vice Mayor is vacated permanently. All council members shall be eligible to vote or eligible for the office. Mayor will nominate, but he will vote. Bottom line is, according to our code, you do elect the Vice Mayor at the organizational meeting the Monday following the election. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm gonna get out of here. I'm not gonna hear from nobody about any kind of appointment or nothing like that, right? You talk to others, but you won't talk to me. That's not, I don't think that's proper. So I guess I have to go my way, if you phone call to try to get something accomplished, to sit and talk to somebody, correct? Or I'll call Tallahassee in the morning. Have a nice day. And my cousin from the FBI, I'll be talking to him tomorrow. He'll help me out with this matter.
We have a motion and a second at this point. Put it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That closes our council business. We have some items up for old business, and I'm actually going to pass that to Mr. Duke, just for introduction, and then open it for discussion if there is any. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Get back. It's on page 2. So what I asked staff to do was, had requested council to start running tally notes, so that things that are old business that are still in progress, we'll put the latest update for that old business item. As things are completed, our intent is to drop it off the list, and you don't know, we're just disappeared. It's been accomplished. So that's what you see under old business. We discussed that 2 weeks ago. Just need an update on old business. So that's our update. Obviously, if you have questions or concerns about that, or would like some different format, we can do that. But, this was our response to trying to topic that we asked for a couple of weeks ago.
I like having it on there, thank you. It's very helpful.
Is there any further old business or discussion on the old business that's in our packets?
I like to see, we do have a audio issue. the room, the microphones, the speakers. If they can't hear back there, but it sounds like a little echoing.
Well, these mics, it's a combination of, we did change the speakers in the ceiling, which is the next thing I can have investigated. We had a limited budget, how to repair the problem. We don't have, I've already talked to people that are watching it at home. They can hear and see everything, visual and sound is good. That's in running right now. We are live feed tonight, so that's in running. I will look into estimates to improve speakers. I do not own the speakers. The speakers that we have here were inspected, working fine. We've ran several tests. It varies on, everyone's voice is different. Projection, talking, whatnot. Some people can be heard well, some people can't. For instance, my voice can be heard from here to here and also be through the speakers on top. So, but I'll look more into the sound itself.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there's an echo.
Just on the sound.
Just come with on.
Just a comment on the sound, sitting where I was sitting, at first this microphone wasn't on, once it was turned on, it was fine. I can hear everything you all are saying now. I'm not saying it sounds perfect, but I'm saying it's a heck of a lot better than I heard before. Obviously, with that home, that's sort of a different feed, you're probably hearing a little bit. I had no difficulty understanding what everyone was saying. Not saying there isn't some room for improvement, but sound.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. With that, I believe that concludes all our own business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right. We have a CRA meeting. I'd like to take a 5-minute break to allow the